Dino Thunder, power up! Ha! Hello guys, this is the second recording I've done as a Dino Thunder review, because the camera messed up. So here's my Dino Thunder review. If you remember, I gave Ninja Storm an average. So is Dino Thunder good or what? Well, we're about to find out because we're about to power up. So we begin with Day of the Dino, which is the start of the series. We see our old friend Tommy Oliver. He's escaping some villains, and he escapes them by jumping from a cliff into a body of water. And sometime later, we see that Tommy has been hired to be the science teacher at Reefside High School. And we also are introduced to 3 students of Reefside: Connor McKnight, Ethan James, and Kira Ford. This will be our new Ranger team. Connor, Ethan, and Kira are all given detention for a week, and Tommy is chosen to oversee the detention. And Tommy takes the teens on a field trip and to a museum, and he waives detention for the week. Connor, Ethan, and Kira find themselves in a secret lab, and they find some mysterious gems: a red, blue, and yellow gem. So, after Kira gets kidnapped by the villain of this season, Mesagog, Connor and Ethan go to find Tommy, and they find his address, and they discover that the place they were in before, when they found all of these gems, is actually Tommy's lab. So Tommy, Ethan, and Connor go after Kira, who had managed to escape from Mesagog, and lands on a car. I should say that each of these gems give each person holding it a special power. Connor gets super speed, Ethan gets rough skin, and Kira gets a super scream. So upon saving Kira, the 4, Tommy and the 3 others, are attacked by our foot soldiers, the Pteranodrones. They fight them off, and then Tommy explains that what they found are the Dino Gems, and that Mesagog wants to return the world to the time of the dinosaurs. So he tells them that the Dino Gems activate the Dino Morphers, and that by saying Dino Thunder power up, the 3 can become Power Rangers, which is very interesting because I believe that's the first person who's ever said how to actually morph and what the morphing call actually is. So that's unique in some cases. So Connor, Ethan, and Kira morph, and they fight the Biozords. They tame the Biozords, and they get their own Zords. Connor gets the Tyrannosaur, Ethan gets the Tricerazord, and Kira gets the Pterazord. They are essentially a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a Triceratops, and a Pterodactyl. So we have 3 Zords that are reminiscent of MMPR right here with those 3. After some filler episodes, Tommy is kidnapped by Mesagog, and of course his 2 generals, Zeltrax and Elsa. And this leads into the 500th episode of the series, Legacy of Power, which serves as a clip show of the entire series with the backdrop of Connor, Ethan, and Kira having to find Tommy. So, during the episode Back in Black, we discover that Tommy managed to escape Mesagog and grab what Mesagog had, which was the Black Dino Gem. The Black Dino Gem chooses Tommy. He comes with a morpher. That's a 2-part morpher. It has 1 part here, and then a key, and Tommy's thing is Dino Thunder power up, and he puts them together like this, and Tommy becomes the Black Ranger. Which is all well and good. Tommy being a Power Ranger is always fun and very enjoyable. So there also are two characters in this season, Cassidy Cornell and Devin DeVal, two people compared to Bulk and Skull, but I'll get into that later. So Legacy of Power and Back in Black serve as kind of a small little story arc, but the main story arc continues with White Thunder, parts 1 through 3, which is the start of the White Rangers saga, which starts when the Rangers' new friend Trent Fernandez, finds an invisiportal that leads to Mesagog's lair, and inside Mesagog's lair is the White Dino Gem, which has pure evil energy in it. And the White Dino Gem bonds to Trent, and it forms his morpher, and he becomes the White Ranger, which alters his personality, and the longer the Dino Gem stays evil, the more of the White Ranger becomes Trent, and the more Trent becomes evil. So, eventually, and we also find out at the end of Burning at Both Ends that Mesagog is Dr. Anton Mercer, Trent's father. But it's a Jekyll and Hyde situation, and that Mercer doesn't want to be Mesagog. Had to get a drink there. And that Mercer doesn't want to be Mesagog. But Mercer fights off Mesagog enough that a laser or something that Mesagog was working on, Mercer manages to redirect, and it hits Trent's Dino Gem, which reverses its polarity, which makes it good. Thus, Trent can become good, and he uses powers to help the Power Rangers. And Mercer tells him to do that. And yes, Trent does keep the secret from the other Rangers, but I'll get into my thoughts on that at the end of near the end of this review. So there's a lot of filler. Then we get to the episode Fighting Spirit, and it's there's 2 episodes I want to talk about. I normally don't talk about a lot of episodes in these reviews, but there's 2 I want to, just because of this season has some I want to talk about, not in depth, but one of them is called Lost and Found in Translation, which basically Connor, Ethan, and Kira find a Japanese show that is based on Power Rangers, when in reality what they're watching is an episode of Ava Ranger, which is the Sentai that Power Rangers is based on, that Dino Thunder is based on this Sentai Ava Ranger, and it's a very poorly dubbed It's a very poorly dubbed episode. It doesn't really serve anything, it's just a unique episode. The episode that is worth mentioning a little bit, though, is Fighting Spirit, where after being freed from Amber that Trent had put Tommy in, and he finds he can't demorph, the Ranger's friend and technical advisor Haley decides to use the power of Tommy's Dino Gem to try to get him unmorphed, which does succeed, makes him invisible, and he goes into a coma, but he does become visible again. And while he's in a coma, Tommy is visited by 3 spirits from his past, you could say. The ghost of Ranger past, so to speak, of Tommy. Zeo Ranger 5 from Power Rangers Zeo, the White Ranger from MMPR, and the Green Ranger from MMPR. I don't know where the Red Turbo Ranger was. I guess that's TJ's full power now. I don't know. But Tommy has to fight all of them off. He does, and they say he passed the test and that he gets to live. Well, I would imagine Tommy always wanted to live, I would imagine, but it was a very nostalgic episode if you grew up on Power Rangers, like when it first started, like I did. So then there's some more filler, and then we get to a team-up episode that was not persistent in Ninja Storm, and I maybe would have helped Ninja Storm if one persisted, was around with Ninja Storm and Wild Force. And it's called Thunderstorm, and It starts differently than most team-ups, because while it starts with the villain from the last season coming back, in this case Low4, he actually manages, by impersonating Sensei Watanabe, to actually turn Tori, Dustin, and Shane evil and join him. And he gives them these new morphers, which actually do make the Ranger, which actually do allow Tori, Shane, and Dustin to morph. Upon finding this, Cam takes Hunter and Blake to the Abyss of Evil to retrieve the Samurai Amulet so they can get their powers back. And they do this while the Dino Rangers fight the Ninja Rangers, and the Dino Rangers get their butts kicked by the Ninja Rangers. Or excuse me, the Wind Rangers as they're called. So eventually, using the help of some power discs, Cam, Hunter, and Blake break the spell over Tori, Dustin, and Shane. Tori, Dustin, and Shane, plus Cam and Hunter and Blake and Sensei, all go to Dr. O's lab. And they all agree that the best way to stop the combined forces of Mesogog and Low4 is to do the traditional Power Ranger team-up thing. And you get the traditional group team-up with the explosion in the back, and the Rangers, all 11 of them, fight off the combined forces of Low4 and Mesogog, which is basically Elsa and a bunch of Triptoids, which were a second group of foot soldiers Mesogog picked up, and the Kelzacs. This is not so well Mesogog or Low4 who engage in a fight. That's actually very good. Low4 can actually fight. You know, he may be a very bad villain, but he can actually fight. And it shows that Mesogog would have been a force to handle too if he engaged the Rangers by himself. But eventually Mesogog wins towards Low4 into an action figure, and that ends the team up. Thunderstorm is a good team-up, but it does kind of undercut the Dino Thunder Rangers, which you never want to do in a team-up. The Lost Galaxy Lightspeed Rescue team-up does this through the fault of not making necessarily one Ranger team look bad. It just focuses more time on a little kid that actually takes away from the Galaxy Rangers being in the episode. So need another drink. So the final story arc begins with House of Cards, in which Tommy discovers that Principal Randall is Elsa. A lot of secret identities in Dino Thunder. It's quite unique, actually. It's very unique, actually. And the school eventually sees Elsa become Principal Randall become Elsa. Upon defeating the monster that Mesogog releases, in an attempt to help Mesogog be free of Mercer, Elsa eventually sets off Mercer's mutation in front of the Rangers, and the Rangers all find out that Mesogog is Anton Mercer. And since Trent kept this from them, they are unsure if they can ever trust Trent again. The penultimate episode is a clip show, and in the finale is Thunderstruck, parts 1 and 2. Part 1 starts with Trent striking a deal with Mesogog to release his father Anton Mercer, who Mesogog has managed to free himself of, and in return, Trent will give Mesogog the Dino Gems. The Rangers are skeptical about this, but Trent says he'll open a portal for him. And he does. And Rangers get in and they destroy Mesogog's lair, while Zeltrax has taken a purified Elsa captive and destroyed Dr. O's lab. So, just like every good finale, the base of operations gets blown up. So, part 2 starts with the Rangers fighting off Zeltrax and destroying Zeltrax and saving Elsa, and then Mesogog shows back up. And Mesogog is a powerhouse, and not even Connor's Battleizer can help. So eventually, after Mesogog copies himself into 4 different monsters, the Rangers have to use all of their Dino power in their Dino Gems to destroy Mesogog once and for all, thus sacrificing their powers as they had to do with their Zords. And then the Rangers go to the prom, and that finishes the series. Character thoughts. Connor is not the best Red Ranger in the world, but he doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be because Dino Thunder, the Red Ranger's not the leader in Dino Thunder. Tommy is. There's a lot of things that tell you that, and quite frankly, Tommy should be the leader of that. Any team Tommy's on, he should be the leader of. Okay? So, Connor can have the stuff that's in here with Connor. He is egotistical like Carlos, but he eventually did become a good Ranger as a whole, but not the Red Ranger position. But then again, like I said, he was on like Western Time Force, so you could afford to do that with him. Even I had no real problem with. I think him being a video game nerd and stuff, it allowed him to help Haley out with tech stuff and things like that. Kira, being again the only female, is a combination of every pink and yellow Ranger, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. So Kira didn't get a lot of development on any way, but again, maybe she didn't need it. Trent is a lot like Tommy from MMPR Season 1. In fact, in that he's got a very similar storyline and how he was first introduced with the White Ranger being evil and all that stuff. And that stuff works in Power Rangers. It's the best way to introduce a 6th Ranger. It worked in MMPR. It worked in Lightspeed Rescue. Okay? It worked in Ninja Storm. And it worked in Wild Force too. Even if in Ninja Storm they introduced it too early, it still worked to help introduce the Thunder Rangers as villains. Because Rangers are normally... evil Rangers are good villains for Power Rangers because they tend to have Power Rangers' powers, so you can always give them a fight, and they're always some of their hardest fights are with actual evil Rangers themselves. And also, Trent not telling the Rangers about Mesogog being Anton Mercer, that's more out of loyalty and love for the guy who pretty much is the only father he knew. So, you can't really fault him for that. It's not like, and it didn't interfere with his Ranger duties, he still leapt into action and helped the Rangers fight off Mesogog's monsters. So, yeah. I think that Trent and Tommy from NPR have a lot of parallels. And that now brings me to Tommy, which, as a Ranger, I've hit on a lot. Tommy's best strength here is Tommy serves as the mentor role in this series. Yes, he's a Ranger, and he's the leader of the team as a Ranger, except for certain cases when he wasn't around, it was Connor. But Tommy serves as mentor for Dino Thunder, and that works better. That works better. Former Rangers make fantastic mentors because they can relate the dangers that being a Power Ranger gives. And Tommy did that. He actually is the most explaining mentor who actually explains far more stuff than virtually any other mentor in this series, including Dosei now doesn't even explain much. So they did a lot with that, and it was nice. Before I get to the villains, I want to talk about Cassidy and Devin. I don't necessarily agree with them that they are like Vulcan Skull. I think they were conceived to be like Vulcan Skull, but they were not written like Vulcan Skull. Vulcan Skull over 5 seasons went from bumbling buffoons, bumbling buffoon bullies, to very noble, heroic characters. Okay? Cassidy is the most shallow person I've ever seen in the history of Power Rangers. And nothing really ever changes that. Minus when she starts hanging out with Eva, and even then it's minimal. And even then it is minimal. She does the right thing in the end of Granted, she does the right thing at the end of the series, but it's still minimal. And Devin, everything he did was really just because of a crush she had on Cassidy. So I can't really say that they are like Bulk and Skull. I think they were conceived to be similar, but they weren't written like Bulk and Skull, if that makes sense. As for the villains, Mesogog is phenomenal. He's a fantastic villain, probably the best one since Lord Zed. So he had a very clear motivation, and he didn't really overreact when he lost, and all that. And
Timmy, would you get me my robe real fast?
Yeah, in a minute. And Mercer and his thing of Mercer made for an interesting dichotomy in a Power Ranger villain that we don't see much. And Mercer served as a conscience in a way for Mesogog. And that whole thing makes Mesogog a very two-dimensional villain, and you don't see a lot of them in Power Rangers, and it's a plus to have seen that. Same thing with Elsa in a way, because of her thing as being Principal Randall. But Elsa was also a very good fighter, too. So she was not a comic relief villain. In fact, there is no comic relief villain in this show, and that helps. And again, I'm not against comic relief villains. They're good. They serve a purpose. But the fact that that Dino Thunder doesn't have one, a comic relief villain, is actually a much better thing to it. Zeltrax was an okay villain. I just didn't understand why he wanted revenge for Tommy on. In fact, if anyone really knows, put it down there in the comment box, because I really don't know what Zeltrax wanted revenge for Tommy for.
Thank you, Tim.
Excuse me 1 second. I don't know where that is. Sorry about that. So, yeah, all in all, Dino Thunder is a very good series that's reminiscent of MMPR. But it still was itself. You could tell it was not trying to be MMPR, it was trying to be MMPR, it was trying to be itself. Sure, it had stuff of MMPR, it had nostalgia for for the older fans, but there was a lot of stuff there that the newer fans would enjoy too. So, of the 2 Disney seasons so far I've seen, it is the best one. And I hope that the next one is just as good, because I really enjoyed watching Dino Thunder. And in the next one, there's an emergency. An SPD Emergency. See you then.